everyone. From the compact and affordable Volkswagen Taos to the Tech Pack Tiguan and the spacious Volkswagen Atlas. No matter which one fits your lifestyle, you'll love the comfort, performance, and safety. Stop by Terry Volkswagen on Forest Road in Lynchburg or check us out online at terryvw.com. Terry Volkswagen. You'll love our cars.
When a child is struggling with their mental health, the adults around them can make all the difference. Parents, teachers, coaches, anyone who shows up in a child's life. Because in those tough moments, kids are looking to the grown-ups around them for support.
If you're at school having a bad day, you just don't want to do anything.
I just get these thoughts like, do better. All my little emotions in my head is just running crazy. I don't know what to do.
As a teacher or coach, do you ever feel overwhelmed?
He's just in tears in the huddle. I was like, what's wrong? And he's just like, I'm just so frustrated. And I didn't know what to do.
None of my undergraduate studies talked about mental health.
Teachers need tons of help.
That's why the Kids Mental Health Foundation provides free expert-developed tools and resources to help adults support the kids they care about.
Having those resources is the same as the CPR class to me. We're trying to save a life here.
Because when adults feel supported, kids do too. Kids Mental Health starts with us. Find free resources at kidsmentalhealthfoundation.org.
America 250 is a great time to reflect on our country's past, present, and insane savings. BTRN's InsaneRadioDeals.com is celebrating 250 years of America with 25.0% off of everything. This includes savings on Hill City Howlers food vouchers and tickets, both general public and premium reserve. These tickets are eligible to be used at any game. The InsaneRadioDeals.com America 250 sale, 25.0% off of our entire inventory. Now until August 1st, you will not want to miss it.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, and asking your smart speaker, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane and JJ Hendrickson.
There's an old saying about throwing stones in glass houses. I think there's some merit to that, even for us today, as we begin the fast lane. Because we have a glass house just like so many other people do. The reason why we're bringing that up is that we're not perfect at Virginia Talk Radio Network. We are a very small staff, 5 or so of us. That does include some people that do some contract work for us on our towers and transmitter sites and keep us on the air. There's something to this, though, on a local angle. We've been in a spot where we've had to either lose people or they've walked away, in part because of financial considerations. That's the reality of the media landscape across the board, unless you're so wildly successful that you're Pat McAfee or someone of that caliber and have your own brand. Or you generate enough views on a platform like YouTube, BTRN Sports, Fastlane, Ed Lane, those are ours in case you're curious and want to check us out there. We appreciate however you consume us. And you get paid because you bring so much traffic to that site. And they can always change the algorithm whenever they want. They are the ones who, as Melissa McCarthy would remind us, just so happen, very conveniently, to have
lots of power.
And therefore, you're always at their mercy. I don't like to invoke religion here in the wrong way, but the algorithm gods, if that's your term, there's a random luck of the draw element that goes into that. I bring all that up to say, yesterday we touched on ESPN's latest round of layoffs. There's a local element to this. We've lost a number of great local talent, including at the Virginia Talk Radio Network, because of financial belt tightening, if you will. Sometimes that local talent decides to retire, and then they move on to other ventures, and you realize retirement may have been more of an amicable version of mutually agreed to part ways. One of my favorite quotes when someone's basically fired or dismissed or let off. There are other versions of that, though, that have popped up. Sometimes positions just aren't filled. Other times, they're actual budgetary layoffs. But the common denominators, generally speaking, are talented people. Like, we've lost a number of talented people. 2 prominent sportscasters. WSET's Dennis Carter, Travis Wells of WDBJ. Different ways of departing, but in essence, how those have been backfilled have been relatively similar. Younger and, let's call it what it is, less expensive talent. We've done the same thing here at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. I'm a firm believer. There are plenty more people that could generate and have generated more quality on-air content. You can assume and make your own decisions however you want. But I'm not naive to the fact that I'm not going to say I'm immune to this. I could lose my job at any point, just like anybody else can. Our fearless leader, Gary, could go, hey, we got to make those tough decisions. You're out. But the sales have brought me to a point where the cold reality applies different to me. I'm not more talented than the accomplished media people in our area. NewsAdvance.com's Ben Cates, who teamed with Bryson Gordon for a while. Now Bryson Gordon, who does great work and will join us around 5:25 today, talk Liberty Flames and some local sports, is doing even more on his own. Admirable job. He does a fantastic job. But I get it. It's the bigger picture enterprise of that organization and others. We mentioned Dennis Carter, who's, a Hall of Fame broadcaster in the area. And, Dave Wall's right after that. And now, Will Stafford does great sports work, but it's clear, they lost another one who is retiring at the end of this week. There's a lot of turnover. And if you look at the common threads of replacements, younger, which is often code for less expensive. We're blunt about it here at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. I think if anything, we're different in the sense that, I've told this to JJ, I told it to Trey, to Ty, to TJ, to Caleb, people who've been on our team. There's going to come a point where you're probably going to have the requisite skills and the life circumstances that prompt you to graduate from us to a different role. I just think, if nothing else, we try to be as transparent as possible. Now, we hope to have JJ around for a long time. We'd be delighted to do it. He's doing fantastic work and has been off to a great start with us, as we're delighted to say. But all that ties back in to what we've seen at the latest round of layoffs at ESPN. Like, merit and quality of work are not the factor in this. In fact, this is just my bias, man. I'm not big on the hot take shows, but clearly the people who create that content are deemed to be people that have
Lots of power.
in the structure of what is basically the pyramid scheme of media. And in turn, because they happen to have lots of power, they happen to get
dollar bills, y'all.
Which often translates to that. I think it's fascinating, though, to look at this because what's happening at ESPN has happened on a local level. Carl Ravitch is an example of that. I don't know if you follow Carl Ravitch a ton. You're a big baseball guy, right, JJ?
Yeah, I am. Yes.
Little League World Series?
Not much Little League World Series, honestly.
No, but he's been part of that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
College World Series.
Yeah.
He's been part of that. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. And yet, whether it's his being laid off, whether it's Bart Scott recently dismissed, Ryan Clark, who, by the way, found out, I don't like how he found out Monday, but apparently he was given the opportunity to finish his show and just decided to walk away. Again, everybody handles those things differently in the moment. Granted, Clark has his own podcast, very successful and very monetizable. I don't think he's going to be starving, not to mention had a pretty lucrative career in the NFL with the Steelers and then the Washington franchise, which may or may not have overpaid him like many others on the back half of his career. But all those are departed. But the way they're viewed, and plenty in our local area, I'm not saying all of them, I'm not singling out any organization. I think this applies to me. I've always taken this mindset that to an extent, I too am part of this idea that essentially owners view us or people in ownership or management positions as lines on a spreadsheet, as Arash Madani mentioned on Richard Deitch's sports media podcast earlier today.
These are not media companies anymore. These are not broadcasting companies anymore. These are just arms of a corporate division of a much bigger conglomerate. These decisions are not being made based on ability, teammate, versatility, etc. It's just a line on a spreadsheet to click and remove.
It's true. Like, again, I think our fearless leader, Gary, has a much more, oftentimes people have found him to be opinionated, which I think when you run a business, you are. I think it's a fair assessment of him. But he also has tried to be more, reasonable with people than just the cold line on a spreadsheet mindset. It's part of one of the things that's kept me at the Virginia Talk Radio Network is that it's hard, it's demanding, but there's a warmth to it and local businesses in general that you don't get at a corporate level. And we're tying all this in because of ESPN's layoffs yesterday, and there's a local angle. We've seen layoffs in all forms of media, radio, print, and TV in our own backyard recently. But Arash Madani added on the Richard Deitsch podcast that I think one of the differences is when it's local ownership, there's an element of business preparation. You actually have your own investment in the organization. Like Gary Burns literally owns our stations. He has put his money into operating it. And it's not just he. There are other media outlets in the area, many of them, that are not just operated by big corporations, but are operated on a very local level. I think you have it differently. You're around often. You're accountable locally. I know I'm sounding like a salesman for us and for other local media, but I think there's truth to that. And when you're around, people feel like they want to partake and invest in it. And it works wonders in that regard. And we got our flaws at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. It's always an uphill battle for everybody in media, advertising, and everything else. But Madani added this, that's different from the corporate mindset, which isn't just lines on a spreadsheet. Frankly, the decision makers, it's less about investment and more about self-preservation.
The decision makers are now just only concerned about the bottom line and how that makes them look to the corporate hierarchy, not about the viewer, not about the subscriber, not about their employees.
Many times not about the product.
And certainly not about the content that they are putting on their screens or presenting wherever the heck they're presenting. Everybody's just hanging on for dear life for self-preservation.
That's different from local marketing. Like it just is. And I know we're getting into the weeds on this, but there's a local angle to this where some media ventures in this area are locally run and owned and operated. And look, we have our flaws. Glass houses, I get that principle. But there's also the reality from a business sense of there's a different level of care and investment to the area. Like our owner's got, he's got a place he stays on the South Side, Virginia, and he's in the area as well. Full disclosure, our owner, his stepdaughter is a good family friend of ours. So again, locally invested in the area. Different at that level. And the Carl Ravitch departure, he was doing a lot. He was providing a lot of value. But it goes back to what's happened with a lot of talent in the area that's been drained. And again, the people doing great work in TV, and there's still plenty of them. Will Stafford, multiple things he's juggling with WSET. Admirable job. Same thing, Bryson Gordon, newsadvance.com. High school sports, local sports, Liberty Flames. He's able to touch on it all. He's extremely gifted and versatile. But a lot's been put on all those people's plates. And the reality is, whether it's that in other areas, it's the idea, as Richard Deitsch mentioned on his podcast, a lot of these people higher up the food chain, they just want somebody that's younger and frankly cheaper.
That's a salary play. I think there's a certain point where the company determines, and you're like you said, Arash, it's just a line. If they make a determination, we have to cut, I'm making up $7 million from the budget. We see somebody who's making, $2 million a year. And it doesn't go into what Donovan's talking about. There's nothing about good teammates and stuff like that. I wish that was the case. Meritocracy almost never exists anymore when it comes to layoffs.
No doubt. No, it doesn't. I think Richard Deitsch is fascinating. By the way, for context, are you familiar with Richard Deitsch at all?
I am not actually, no.
He's one of the foremost experts when it comes to sports media. He's worked for The Athletic. He's worked for Sports Illustrated. He's worked for Rogers Sportsnet up in Canada, all big, ironically, corporations. So he's got that angle and perspective, and he covers sports media. And the people he has on regularly to talk about it, I mean, if you want to go look at his podcast or look at his work, he writes for Sports Business Journal now, which, it's expensive, but I think it's one of the best publications when it comes to sports content. You pay a lot, but you get a lot of quality content out of it. It shapes the perception. That's just the reality of this industry. And it's not to poo-poo on JJ or me or other people. It's, you can come here and you can make it in the industry, but it's not a linear path the way that it used to be. And I think that's probably the one thing. Were you aware of all of this from a business sense when you were in Blacksburg at Virginia Tech, that you could make a career in media and in sports media, but back in the day where, you may have just been a columnist in the same area for years and you're well compensated, or let's call a spade, you may have just been a talk show host in the area and that's all you did, and they were paid plenty of money and the sales staff did their thing and, you never had to worry about that. Those days are long gone.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't entirely aware of how it works, especially these big corporations. This is the most experience I've ever had working in sports media is here at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. So like you said, very small staff, feels very personal. Everyone genuinely cares. But to see these layoffs going off as a corporation as big as ESPN, I'm thinking about what I'm doing now. I'm trying my best to do the best quality content, make the best work, just be the best employee I possibly can be. And seeing all these super talented people who are on air, off air, what have you, being laid off for just simply financial reasons, it's concerning because if I'm doing the best I can do, it's not necessarily a safe thing anymore.
I agree with that. Here's where I'll say it's different. Like for me, my Swiss Army knife advantage, being able to do multiple things, largely centers on the fact that I can sell advertising. And again, they're hits and they're misses. And you can listen to the station and figure out when we're really full of ads. We've had those moments. You can figure out when we have our challenges, but still good sponsors and partners, and we're blessed to have. So there's an extra thing. You're learning multiple skills. I think the one thing is a lot of the people that are laid off are talent. Carl Ravitch is different because he did multiple things, but sometimes Cam Newton, Ryan Clark, God bless him. I love Charles Davis's work, but sometimes job descriptions overlap. Sometimes they are only skilled in one particular area, and so it's just different. Whereas like what you're doing and what I'm doing, you're developing multiple skills. So if it's not here and it will serve you well here, they're also the type of things that will serve you well in other endeavors in this profession, being younger and being forced to do more things. Whereas a lot of people further up the food chain haven't done it. Like I was talking to one person who's been on the media side of things and now is out of covering things as a member of the media, but still works with the media and is around the media at least. And the comment was, when this person first started, TV people would have to just go out and appear at an event. And you have a camera person that is there to shoot it, and you have someone else back editing it in the studio. Now, you're doing it all. Like, if you're younger, you're nimble and you're able to handle that, and it doesn't seem daunting. But if you're older and you're only used to doing one of those things, you have to add a skill set, which does get harder the older you get. Your brain just, the ability to add those extra skills becomes challenging. And by the way, yeah, you are a higher salary structure. So, again, I'm not trying to sit here and, have JJ walk right out on us today. It's hopeless. There's no opportunity. There are chances, but your ability to do more coming in is a total shaper of how things go.
Yeah, and that makes total sense, and that's why I'm so grateful for my opportunity here. Like you said, there's so much I'm doing. I'm on the production side. I'm on air, and those skills I feel like are going to end up being very valuable down the line to avoid being, not to be harsh, but a one-trick pony, like you said, guys who only have one skill set that they're able to do. So, as long as I'm trying my best to provide versatility, provide value, make good content, I would hope that's enough going forward. But what we're seeing from ESPN is sometimes it's simply just not enough.
I think a lot of that, too, is the difference between being local and not being local. And the further up you go, the different they view you from a local level where they can see your value, see that, maybe you need to add something to somebody's plate and give them some more responsibilities. And sometimes that means additional. Like I've seen scenarios where, a person or two gets laid off and they take that salary, they save some of it, they give a little bit of it to the worker. So the person who's adding more work does get some compensation for that. It's be nimble, be flexible, be versatile is such a key thing. Meanwhile, speaking of keys, one of the keys to savings and making sure you manage your money so that if you're in that spot or not is shopping and saving at InsaneRadioDeals.com. The America 250 sale, not much longer, but it's still going on now. That means 25% off the list price of every single item. That includes Liberty Flames single game or season tickets, Hill City Howlers, general admission, or reserve seats with the food voucher. And I think we've got a couple of those that are up right now at InsaneRadioDeals.com. The Sky Boxes. Fantastic viewing experience for a Hill City Howlers game. We've done it before. Check them out now at InsaneRadioDeals.com. More on the Flames in a moment, but we get to our own opinions right now in...
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
Liberty. This was over the weeks where we were out of the office, so it's been more recent than now. Signed Bradley LaCroix to a new contract extension through the 2031 season. It's the second year of his tenure on the mountain. 43-21 season this past year. They made the regionals of the NCAA tournament, the round of 64, for the 9th time in program history, and gave Georgia a run for their money in that regional. The smart thing is the fact that this continues a trend for Ian McCaw of generally staying ahead of contract extensions, ahead of the market, showing people that you're doing as much as you possibly can in that spot to commit to them. Liberty, obviously, LU does not have LSU type of resources. They've seen that literally with CJ Daniels leaving LU for LSU a few years ago, the wide receiver who finished his career at Miami. But what you can do is you can stay ahead of these things. That's the positive for the Flames. It was a great season. I think it's well earned for Bradley LaCroix. You add into that Liberty staying ahead on contract negotiations rather than being reactive. It shows that you're committed as much as possible, and it doesn't eliminate sniffing around by coaches, players, or agents, but it says that you're doing the best you can, and it makes it more appealing, and people be more selective if they are to leave the mountain. Speaking of the Liberty Flames, by the way,
Number 4.
former Liberty Flames star Talon Peter was released by the Indiana Pacers. They waived the two-way guard who averaged 4.5 points in 38 games played for Indiana last year. He was a really good story as the 54th pick of the NBA draft in 2025, when myself included, a lot of people didn't think he was going to get that position. I imagine somebody's going to give him a shot. This is kind of the lot in life of a guy like Talon Peter. You're going to be a back half of the bench, so you'll probably bounce around to a number of teams. But I'd still be okay being a guy that bounces around to a number of teams for a few years and collects $1 or $2 each year for that particular role.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think he's going to be going anywhere, even if we don't see him in the NBA necessarily. He could be playing in the G League on a two-way contract, splitting his time between that. So plenty of opportunity out there for him. And worst comes to worst, he can play overseas and get paid very, very well.
Meanwhile,
Number 3.
some more things to wrap up the World Cup. One of them being Fox's English language broadcast for the final drew just under 39 million viewers. Telemundo, Peacock, under 24 million. 38.9, 23.9 million viewers for that. Those are NFL playoff game type numbers. More than college football playoff or championship games. I think a lot of people rallied around it being in the USA, being at a reasonable time of 3:30 in the afternoon. We talk about that late afternoon slot being a key for television viewership. All that plays into this, but this still speaks to the fact that, again, I don't think the MLS is all of a sudden going to contend for being one of the 4 biggest sports leagues. But it mentions the fact that there's still a level of health to the World Cup, and it was shown based on what happened in the final, even with Team USA long gone.
Yeah, this is super exciting to see, Ed. I mean, all my life growing up, soccer has been on the back burner. People don't really talk about it. People don't really think about it. But this World Cup being in America has brought so many new eyes, so much new viewership to the sport. I'm really excited to see what kind of future it brings for this country in the sport as a whole.
Number 2.
Mike Mulvihill of Fox Sports also has chimed in that there was, quote, no significant loss of audience, end quotes, when hydration breaks came during the tournament. That's regardless of whether the game went to full screen ads or picture-in-picture ads where they have a split screen, essentially. I mean, the reality is this move was made by monetary decisions. It's the type of thing that purists are going to gripe about, but I don't think it's big enough to prompt them to stop paying attention, especially to a mega event like the World Cup. It's one of those you can kind of irritate your customer base, and they're not going anywhere, so you irritate the customer base to get more money out of it.
Yeah, I'm in that exact field, excuse me, Ed. I love soccer. I hated the hydration breaks with all my heart. There should never be commercials in the middle of half of a soccer game, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to turn off the game. I'm not going to go anywhere just because there's 60 seconds of ads.
Yes, very true. It is one of those you hate, but it's not enough to despise it. Meanwhile,
Number 1.
I'll give a hat tip to the Sports Business podcast, Sports Business Radio podcast with Brian Berger, who hosts that. I love his idea. Take Alexi Lawless off the coverage with his hot takes and always clashing with the other 2 people who's I can't get his name out, and then Thierry Henry. Get rid of Lawless and replace him with Carly Lloyd. I love it. She's a credible female soccer analyst. She's accomplished more, as Team USA's women's team has accomplished more than the men's team. I'd love to see this. I don't know if it'll happen, but it'd be awesome to see.
Yeah, that'd be incredible to see. I mean, Carly Lloyd, the woman who scored a hat trick in a World Cup final, would bring much better analysis than Alexi Lawless, I'm sure. I don't know if you heard, Ed, but Zlatan Ibrahimovic announced he will not be returning to Fox, and I'm curious if that has anything to do with kind of the relationship him and Alexi had. He would call out some of his bad takes, but Carly Lloyd coming to the show would be very exciting to see. I think she would offer a lot better analysis than we were seeing from Alexis.
Can I be cynical? I also think that might be a bit of an agent money play, if you will.
You think so?
You got 4 years to get this thing figured out.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
But
plenty of time.
We'll see what happens in the future. Meanwhile, when we return, Bryson Gordon, newsadvance.com. A lot of high school sports, but we'll cover mostly the Liberty Flames with him when we return here in the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app and 93.3 FM.
Midday hunger hitting you hard? Swing by Macadoo's for our $8.95 weekday lunch specials. Whether you're craving a classic crunch or something fresh, we've got you covered. Chicken tender basket featuring crispy golden tenders served with fries. The Macadoo's Chef Salad, a healthy, loaded favorite that will hit the spot. Hit back against your lunchtime hunger at Macadoo's with eats that won't break the bank.
It's time to share it and fun. Just to be there, the only one. Just to be there at Macadoo's.
We'll see you at the Do's.
End zone, light them up. Touchdown, Liberty.
The atmosphere at a game is amazing. It is like family.
I've been a season ticket holder for 14 seasons. The atmosphere is electric.
On the sideline.
It's an experience you look forward to every week. I like the pageantry, the band.
The pride of knowing that this is our university.
2026 Flames football season tickets are on sale now. Get yours at lufootball.com.
Edge of your seat drama, the thrilling pursuit of victories and championships. From the premier NASCAR series to local racing, visit frontstretch.com for your true inside access. We don't just report the news, we live it. From insightful articles and captivating podcast commentary, frontstretch.com opens the gates to the NASCAR pits, track, and corporate suite, so you can get closer to the garage than ever before. Frontstretch.com, fast, fearless, focused on racing fans.
Are you sick of running your dryer longer just to dry your clothes? It might not be a dying appliance. It might be a clogged up dryer bin. Call Black Goose Chimney Service to find out. Their certified ventilation specialists don't just diagnose chimneys. They also clean dryer vents through the entire ventilation system. Get peace of mind as you're protected from lint clogging your dryer vents, one of the most common causes of house fires. Call Black Goose Chimney Service today and visit blackgoose.net to schedule your dryer vent cleaning.
VTRN Sports, your companion at work, at home, and in your car. VTRN Sports. Download our app and take us everywhere.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Surprised by the level of accountability? That's the question we pose right now to our next guest, Bryson Gordon, newsadvance.com local sports reporter who is joining us today. BG with us here in the Fast Lane. BG, glad to have you. Thank you for joining us. It's been a hot minute since we have spoken with you. You used to be on the morning warm-up back in the day when Trey was hosting that show. Now you're stuck with me, so I have to apologize for that. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties getting Bryson Gordon and linking up with him here in the Fast Lane. I'm not sure if he's unable to hear us. Sometimes that also happens, but it looks like he's logged back on and tried to get that resolved. BG, good to go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is that the treatment we get for putting you off all these years?
Yeah. Nothing was wrong. I just didn't want to. I just wanted to give you a little 30-second delay there. There was nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with audio issues.
Play up the drama. I like it.
That's right. Make him win.
BG, newsadvance.com with us here in the Fast Lane. BG, how surprised were you at the tone with which Jamie Chadwell addressed his health issues last year and kind of took it on the chin himself when a lot of people would understand as that being a viable explanation for how part of the reason why the Flames had a disappointing 4-8 season?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, this was only the third time, I believe, we've had the opportunity to hear from Coach Chadwell, since he had the procedure in January. You mentioned the first time he came back for spring ball. We remember that teleconference that we had with him. And then obviously at the end of spring practice, he spoke again. And then, we haven't heard from him really since then until yesterday. And so, he spoke about that. He spoke about his health. I think it was very interesting to hear, how emotional he got towards the very end, speaking about, how this isn't going to happen again, right? I let my health destroy distract me. I let it distract how good of a coaching job I was doing. And he got emotional there at the very end, mentioning how he wasn't going to let that happen again. I think the most interesting part was, because we haven't, heard a lot about exactly what he's gone through, and obviously that's his health. It's his prerogative to share what he'd like to share on that. But it was interesting to hear that, yesterday was the first time he had mentioned that it was something that was bothering him since the 24 season. And that takes you back even, to 2 years now. And so this was something he was dealing with over multiple seasons. He mentioned in 24, it was something he was getting a lot of tests for, a lot of blood work, and was kind of figuring out what was going on. And then you fast forward to last season, and obviously, he's gone on a lot now about how much that's impacted him last year from just a mind state perspective. He said he kind of felt like he was, not always there, not always his complete self in the facility. And I think he has said a couple times how he saw that, bear out in his football team. So it was interesting to hear him talk about it one more time. I'm sure it's probably going to be a storyline as we head into fall camp, just kind of his, level of energy, level of, commitment to this team. I think he's very committed. He mentioned yesterday, this is the most excited he's been for a season in a few years. And so all that to come together to this season, I think it's still going to be a little bit of a storyline to see how he handles things when fall camp kind of really gets going.
Night and day better is the term that Jamie Chadwell used. Bryson Gordon has a great write-up on that at newsadvance.com about Jamie Chadwell feeling night and day better. Is it also reasonable to wonder, just the stress of the last couple of years, prolonging the health issues, playing into it? I am no medical expert. Don't pretend to be. Never stayed at a chain hotel last night, but you add that and compound it, and it seems like it'd be a viable understanding, even if Jamie Chadwell doesn't want it to be an excuse.
Right. I mean, it's something that whether or not it's something that actually, inhibited him, whether it actually was something that physically ailed him, it was something that mentally ailed him. It's something that he mentioned that he was thinking about a lot. And so whether or not it was something that physically kept him from performing, it was something that mentally kept him from performing. And that's worth noting. And then you kind of add it up, to last season. I mean, it felt like at the end of the season last year, when the 4-game losing streak came at the very end of the season, it just felt like they were not far off from being, in that same stretch. They were not far off from being 3-1, maybe even 4-0 when you look at all them being 1-score games. And so it felt like they were just, just a little bit short last year. And he's taken a lot of as you said at the very beginning of this, he's taken a lot of it on the chin this year. And that's something that not a lot of coaches would do. I think he's owed a tremendous amount of respect for doing it that way.
Other takeaways from Conference USA Media Days. We haven't gotten into the fall camp portion of media coverage. You'll find that at newsadvance.com. Of course, we will have plenty of it as well. Fast Lane, Ed Lane on our social media platforms as those dates approach in the future. What other takeaways that shape what you're seeking to gain and glean for camp did you gather from the Conference USA Media Days?
I think it was interesting to hear Ethan Vasco's name at all. And that's kind of a far cry from where we got in the spring. Not to say Ethan Vasco was out of the quarterback competition. I think it was always a factor of if he could get healthy was going to be, if he can get healthy, he can get his way back into the quarterback competition. Well, he's gotten his way. He's gotten himself healthy again. We've made our way all the way to, pretty much August here, and he's going to find himself in the quarterback battle. It sounded like yesterday. A big battle are the words that Jamie Chadwell said when he alluded to kind of the quarterback competition that's going to unfold here in the next few weeks. That's going to be the number one storyline. There are some options there. I think when you look at kind of the room in general, it's a lot older than last year. Obviously, Vasco is here as well. But whenever you take Ryan Berger out of the picture from last year, he was ruled out for the season right before the season last year. You look at the rest of their quarterback room, it was really inexperienced. Michael Merdinger, not a lot of playing time. Ethan Houck, very little playing time. Guys that really weren't ready to take the ball at the Division I level at the FBS level. And you could really tell when Ethan Vasco went down. Now this year, I would even say ahead of Vasco on the depth chart that they have two guys that they really can count on in Deshaun Purdy and Jalen Henderson, that they can at least feel like they both have played a lot of FBS football. And so that's really going to make, he said a big battle. I think it's going to be a robust competition. It's funny, the timing of, I think I shared it on Twitter yesterday, the Athletic article about, ranking all the quarterbacks in FBS. They had ranked Deshaun Purdy and Liberty's quarterback situation 117th out of the 138 FBS teams. I think it was interesting timing to hear about that. But, going into fall camp, I still expect Purdy to be the guy. That's kind of where I left spring ball feeling, and I still feel like that's kind of where things are going to be. But I think hearing what he said yesterday, mentioning that it's going to be a big battle, mentioning that Ethan Vasco is a part of the leadership in that room, I think that kind of lends credence to the idea that maybe it's not a slam shut, open shut case for Deshaun Purdy to be the quarterback, and that there might be the potential for somebody else to maybe impress Chadwell or make a good case for themselves in the few weeks in fall ball.
We're speaking with Bryson Gordon of newsadvance.com, and we have already spoken with prognosticators like Bruce Marshall of the Gold Sheet, Tim Murray of VSiN. They're at Fastlane, Ed Lane. If you missed those chats, you can check out those where you listen to podcasts. Or in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we'll chat with Phil Steele, noted college football expert. All of them are high on the Liberty Flames, and you got the piece up about the Flames earning high marks in Conference USA preseason projections. Are you surprised that universally, it seems, people are optimistic about the outlook on the mountain?
I am. I think that when you're a Liberty fan, it feels like everybody's, if you're looking at it from a Liberties fan perspective, at least, everybody's kind of optimistic on the teams, which would make me feel as a Liberty fan kind of cautious about what's going on. Why does everybody feel so good about this team, right? This would be the third straight year that a lot of people have gone into the season feeling really good about it. Certainly they felt really good about the team coming off the Fiesta Bowl appearance. Why wouldn't you? They had the 8-4 season, but I think even going into last year, even off the 8-4 season, there was a lot of anticipation and a lot of feeling that they were going to have a really good year. Obviously a lot better than the record that they had with 4-8. And there was reason to believe that last year. I think that many people expected quarterback play to be a lot better. The defense was expected to be pretty good, and that obviously never came together. But for some reason this year, despite all of what we saw last year, despite how we saw last season unfold, there's a lot of outside expectations that this team is going to bounce back. I'd be a little bit cautious. I think Liberty's going to have an improved season. I think there's definite reason for that. But you turn in, as you mentioned, Phil Steele. You open Phil Steele. He's got them, as his preseason number one. I think the bowl confidence index has, every coach and every media person had Liberty, expected to go to a bowl game, which I think is more than fair. I think Liberty will be in a bowl game this year. But to, automatically pencil Liberty into the number one spot in Conference USA, maybe there needs to be an argument made for that for a lot of things. I think that they have certainly, some of the best offensive line play. I think they're going to have the best running back group in Conference USA. But as you mentioned with quarterback, it's still a little bit of a question. And I think we're looking at question marks, pretty much all across the defensive side of the ball when you look at how much they're having to replace. There are a few constants. And so I think that it's kind of surprising to see nobody at all being really low on this team. I think in general myself, I'm obviously kind of there in the middle. I think that I'm going to end up, pegging them for 8 or 9 wins by the end of the offseason when I make my projections. But I think in general to predict this team as the Conference USA favorite, as I think Vegas has installed them as, or at least pretty close. Maybe we got to see a little bit more than that. Maybe there should be some people out there that should have a little bit of skepticism about whether this team can bounce back from 4-8 to, maybe a 9 or 10 win season.
Good analysis on that. We'll get more into those projections as the season gets closer with newsadvance.com's Bryson Gordon. Wanted to get a high school topic or two in if we get a moment. One of them being we've got 2 more new boys basketball coaches in the Seminole District. Tyler Goodman will replace Cam Shepard over at Brookville, and then Bryce Woodliff taking over for Jeff Monroe at Jefferson Forest. You've had a chance to cover both of those developments. What's your initial impressions after those 2 announcements have been made?
It's interesting. I obviously met Mr. Woodliff, who's going to be coaching Jefferson Forest. Shouldn't say Mr. Woodliff. He's a young guy. He's barely older than me, so he's a really young guy. And I think he's going to breathe a lot of life into that program. I think he comes from a really good basketball program out there in Fleming, where he was coaching at. He coached a little bit at Patrick Henry out there. Fun fact about him: he played high school basketball under Jim Justice, the West Virginia former West Virginia governor, state senator, or now the U.S. senator from West Virginia. And so he's got a whole lot of basketball chops, and I think he seems like a guy, he runs a lot of skills camps. He seems like his guy who's going to be able to build that program relatively quickly and have them back competing for, region playoff spots. And then over at Brookville, it's a little bit tougher of a task, but I think that they've made a really good hire here. Cam Shepard was a good coach for them for a few years. Cam Shepard's moved on and actually got him another good coaching job in the Commonwealth. But I think, what Brookville really needs to kind of be focused on right now is just kind of building from the ground back up, kind of building those roots of this program, getting things kind of feeding back in the right direction. They've had a couple of tough seasons, but I think in general, they're headed in the right direction. And then to close the circle, Justin Waldron, who was coaching the girls team at Liberty High, he's stepping over and coaching the boys team at Liberty High now, rounding out. And so, in general, with all 3 of those guys stepping into new positions in the Seminole District on the boys basketball side, I think it's going to be super competitive. And that says nothing about, to what LCA is doing and what Easy Glass does on a perennial basis. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be, from what we saw this past season, I think it's going to be an improved district this upcoming season. And that's saying a lot because there were quite a few playoff teams from the Seminole this year.
We will touch on high school football in the coming weeks. We're going to hold off on those chats because once we get going with that, and frankly, we already have gotten going with Liberty Flames football, it's basically here. Football season, which is code for the end of the calendar year, right, Bryson?
Pretty much. It's basically December now. Yeah, it's all going to go by so fast.
It is. It feels that way. BG, Bryson Gordon of newsadvance.com here in the Fast Lane. BG, great to catch up with you. Excited to be doing more of these and glad to have you join us today.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Bryson Gordon, newsadvance.com, with us here in the Fast Lane. He teased it, and we will pay off that tease in a moment. Phil Steele may be the highest of anybody on the Liberty Flames. Why? We'll let him explain next in the Fast Lane as we ask that question on the VTRN Sports app and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
Big transitions feel like big hurdles. That's why Central Virginia Counseling has 2 dynamic 6-week summer groups for rising 6th and 9th graders packed with essential life skills. Each week targets a new skill for success, tools like organization, time management, task initiation, anxiety reduction techniques, and skills for making friends and communicating well. Through peer connection and expert guidance, students will gain tools to feel capable, connected, and ready for day one. Visit us on Timberlake Road or Wigington Road in Lynchburg or at centralvirginiacounseling.com to learn more.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real technology so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
When you walk into Haley's, you see the size and selection of a big box store. Over 19,000 square feet of appliances and mattresses. Leading appliances like KitchenAid, Whirlpool, Maytag, Genair, Speed Queen, GE, and Monogram. And mattresses like Sealy, Serta, and Tempur-Pedic. So what's the difference? A family, locally owned business. And a staff committed to servicing you over the entire life of the product. That means before, during, and well after your purchase. Visit Haley's today, just off Ward Road in Lynchburg. Haley's, quality that counts.
Some places play football. Virginia Tech lives it. In Blacksburg, maroon and orange combine to belt an anthem heard across the mountains.
Fireworks light up the evening sky in Blacksburg.
And on warm autumn nights, the earth will shake beneath your feet.
It's a miracle in Blacksburg. Hiron did it, Mikey. Hiron did it.
One stadium, one tradition, one unforgettable experience. Virginia Tech football tickets are on sale now. Visit Hokiesports.com. We'll see y'all in the fall.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
So by this point, I've dropped some tea leaves as we welcome you back into the Fast Lane. Not Taylor Swift tea leaves, although we are using that phrase in case algorithms want to pick it up and it wants to boost the listening audience from what we're doing, which, it may not get as much traction as Taylor Swift, but it sounds like it's more fun to those of us who are just real sports fans, which is what we are here in the Fast Lane. No issues with Taylor Swift, just not my kind of music, if you will. But we bring that up because the tea leaves idea that we're dropping, or whatever they call it in the Swiftie world, is we've dropped tea leaves of being optimistic about the Liberty Flames. But I'm not sure that we're nearly as optimistic as our next guest. Phil Steele's publication, you know the guide, every college football season, it is a go-to source in getting ready for what to expect each college football season. Phil Steele, generous enough to join us now in the Fast Lane. Phil, am I selling it correctly that in your publication, you are quite optimistic on a bounce back year for the Flames?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I rate Liberty as my number one most improved team in the country. I think they might have the biggest increase in record of any team out there. And, when you look at Liberty last year, they were a team that was much better than their 4-8 record. They were plus 67 yards per game in CUSA play. I've never seen a team lose back-to-back-to-back overtime games. Change one play in those 3 games, and all of a sudden those are 3 wins, and they finished with a winning record. They didn't lose a lot to the transfer portal. Almost all G6 teams do. They lost just 27 starts to the FBS teams. When I go over the rosters with coaches in the G6, they generally say, boy, he's going to have a good year. He's really good. He won't be with us next year. But Liberty did a good job retaining him. I like what they've got at the quarterback position with Purdy, Vasco, and Henderson. 3 quality guys. I like bringing in Udo at running back. Good talent throughout, and I think the breaks go their way this year. In fact, when I took in the schedule and the talent that they have, I only have a slight underdog in one game this year, and that's at James Madison. I think it's going to be a big bounce back year for Jamie Chadwell.
So you mentioned bounce back year for the Liberty Flames and one slight underdog, and that's it. For Liberty overall, how much do you believe having talked with Jamie Chadwell and studying the roster as well, that his health and the health of the quarterback position, two key elements of health, entirely different reasons, are reasons that will contribute to a bounce back for the Flames.
Yeah, and look at the quarterbacks. They are deep. They go 4 deep at the quarterback position this year. As I mentioned, Purdy, you've got Vasco is back, Jalen Henderson coming in from West Virginia, and even the redshirt freshman Ethan Houck. There are 4 quarterbacks I think they could play this year. Purdy can be dynamic. Vasco would be improved if he's the guy this year, and Jalen Henderson did well at West Virginia. So I think no matter who wins the job at quarterback, they're deep at that position and can overcome any injuries.
Phil Steele's publication. He's with us here in the Fast Lane. Phil, the other side of the ball for the Liberty Flames, the defensive side. How much of a benefit for the Flames is just merely the fact that there is no spring transfer portal window where they were hit pretty hard on the D-line last year? Now it's not an issue, and it seems like they have more pieces on that end too.
Yeah, huge. I mean, last year, the spring portal window took away a couple of starting defensive linemen that probably would have been all conference, really changed the outlook of that, the defense last year. Liberty dropped down on the returning starter chart. But when you look at Liberty this year, not having that second spring portal window is big. And, talking to the coaches this year, Ed, the one thing the coaches pointed out is they all felt that they were more of a team coming out of spring practice. They said, we took a team into the spring. We didn't have to worry about losing these guys. We could coach them harder. We could list a guy third straight and know he's not going to leave. And we felt better about the team coming out of spring. It was more like a team this year. And I think that's going to be better play on the football field across college football.
PhilSteele.com is where you can go to get your publication, or at bookstores. We have Gibbons Books, which is one of our favorites. You can order it from there. It's also at Barnes & Noble and other great places. Plenty of ways to get Phil Steele's College Football Preview Magazine, which is the go-to source when it comes to preview magazines this season. Challengers to the Liberty Flames. You like them to be near the top of Conference USA. Where are you looking in terms of challengers?
Western Kentucky, I think Tyson Helton is a guy that just delivers in the transfer portal. Every year he loses a ton of guys, brings a lot of new guys in, and it produces a solid team, and I think that'll be the case again this year. They were a better team with Rodney Tisdale at quarterback last year. He's back and around for the entire season, so I think they are, as always, a threat. And then Jack State with Charles Kelly. You got to like the fact that Caden Creel is back at quarterback. Yes, they do lose Cam Cook, but I like the running back core overall. It's going to be more of a running back by committee. They all have a different style this year, but a somewhat veteran team and one that got to the championship game. And then don't discount Kennesaw State, the defending champs. Jerry Mack did a great job in his first year there. He's got, they made a quarterback trade with Syracuse. I'm not sure they came out on top of that, giving up Amari Odom for Ricky Collins. Hopefully they got a couple of draft picks along with that. But overall, I think Kennesaw State remains a contender as well.
Phil Steele, 042, is the way to get with him on Twitter. Also at PhilSteele_official on Instagram to keep up with Phil Steele as he joins us in the Fast Lane. Phil, we pivot off of Conference USA to the other conference that will be showing off against Conference USA in Week 1, the Sun Belt, where JMU will be battling the Liberty Flames. You kind of teased it earlier. I liked JMU, or I like Liberty getting 6.5. Some people got it at 7 just because of the newness of the JMU roster. I think it could be good, but take time. Where are you in terms of your evaluation year 1 of Billy Napier in Harrisonburg?
Yeah, and I've got James Madison a 3-point favorite in that game, so I agree with you. I would take the points, but when you look at James Madison this year, talking to Coach Napier, he's happy with the guys they brought in. They bring in 53 new players, which is a lot, but they do retain 49 players, and that's 49 players that won a championship, got to the playoff last year, have that James Madison attitude, and he feels strong that the players he brought in will have that James Madison attitude. So it's a confident team. There is good talent, even though a lot of them are out at UCLA right now, along with their head coach. But Chesney went through the same thing in his first year after Signetti took a bunch of players with him to Indiana. I think they're in good shape at quarterback with J.C. Evans or Davie Belfort, whoever ends up there. And they've got some talented players like Tyler Brown on the offensive line. Looks like an NFLer. Tight end Cole Keller could be as well. I think you're going to see James Madison get back towards the top of the Sun Belt once again, and the good talent throughout. And it's always tough to win at James Madison. They're 65-5 straight up at home the last 10 years.
Phil Steele stopping by with us here in the Fast Lane. Phil Steele with an E.com to get his college football preview. And he does one for FCS, although our discussions today are centering on FBS, and we're focusing now on the Sun Belt. The ODU Monarchs, a team that did really well with Colton Joseph, and they've performed at a high level the last couple of years. Is there enough over in the 757 area in Norfolk to replace the departure of Colton Joseph at quarterback?
Yeah, I think there is. I like what I saw to Quinn Heineken whenever he played. He's had some good experience, looked good when he played. He showed the mobility. They bring in Jackson Potter from Washington State. Now, he's more of a pure passer than what they've had recently, but he gets the ball out quickly. They also have Ryan Huff as a potential there. He's already on the leadership council as a Frosh, and he's 6'2", 215. So I like the talent. They have a quarterback. They bring back Roach at running back along with James. Offensive line's probably my biggest question mark. They had 5 guys last year. They were very strong. They're all gone. So how they replace that offensive line to me is going to be the key. Comfortable with the quarterback position. Like the defense. I think the defense is going to be close to last year. Remember, last year they led the Sun Belt in sacks with 39. My biggest question mark is going to be the offensive line this year.
Phil Steele with us here in the Fast Lane. We're touching on the Sun Belt Conference. We'll get to the ACC in a moment as we look ahead to the upcoming college football season. Some people have pegged Marshall as a dark horse. Others have a team similar on the odds board, also around that 11-1 range in Arkansas State. Where are you looking in terms of Sun Belt teams that might be able to surprise in the positive way?
Yeah, the team I really like this year is Louisiana, and for a couple of reasons. I did an article this year in the magazine on the homegrown factor, which is teams that bring in freshmen, develop some sophomores, juniors, seniors. I think you have more of a team outlook, a team atmosphere coming in, and Louisiana is clearly the top team in the Sun Belt in that. They added 0 starts in the portal, but they didn't lose a lot of starts either. They actually come in number 10 on my homegrown factor chart in the country, number 1 in the Sun Belt. They also are solid on the experience chart overall, number 65, and it's tough for a group of 6 teams to keep players. As mentioned, when I talk to the coaches, they say, hey, if a kid's good, he's going to get bought from us next year. So I think they're doing a good job retaining players. They got Lunch Winfield back at quarterback. They were a much better offense once he took control last year. They've got an outstanding offensive line in front of them, a veteran unit, and it's just a homegrown team that I think is going to really surprise and contend for the overall title in the Sun Belt.
Phil, you and a lot of other folks are optimistic about James Franklin's outlook in Blacksburg. How good do you believe the Hokies can and will be this year in year 1 of James Franklin?
I like what he brings over from Penn State, that's for sure, including his quarterback and Grunkemeyer. So it's a good place to start. Brings over a lot of talent from Penn State, and overall, a lot of talent. Overall, the best move he made, though, this offseason, it was somehow getting Brent Pry to come back as defensive coordinator. I don't know if I've ever seen a coach get fired and then come back as defensive coordinator. It's a great fit. This guy knows all the players on the team. And so Franklin can go to him for that. And he's also an outstanding defensive coordinator. This is going to be a really good Virginia Tech team. And when you look at the season, I believe when a new coach steps in, if they have early season success, there's a buy-in. The players start saying, hey, everything this guy's saying is true. I could see Virginia Tech open up the season 7-0 this year, and that would have a lot of excitement there for Hokie fans. Now, the second part of the schedule, at Clemson, at SMU, at Miami of Florida, those are all 3 really tough games against the 3 top teams in the ACC. So the second part of the schedule might not be as good, but if they're playing with that sort of confidence, you never know what could happen.
You stop short of the at Virginia. Phil Steele with us in the Fast Lane at Phil Steele with an E.com to go there. Order your Phil Steele College Football Preview magazine. It's great to have. It's necessary when getting ready for the season. You stop short of Virginia. Are you expecting a little regression after an epic year for the Hoos last year?
Well, they get Virginia at home, so it's not one of the 3 road games they have. That might have been one of the reasons, but I think Virginia has a shot at getting back towards the ACC title game this year. Again, you look at Bo Perbula coming in at quarterback. I thought he did a good job at Missouri. He's someone that could step in and lead. They've got Eli Holstein behind them. Good running backs with Peyton Lewis and Xavier Brown. The offensive line. This is an area in Tony Elliott's first 2 years. They had no experience on the offensive line. As they've gotten more experience, we've seen the progression, and they feel like they have 10 offensive linemen, maybe even 12 that can play this year. So the offensive line is going to be solid. Defensively, they've got Cam Robinson back at the middle linebacker spot. And last year, we're good on the defensive side of the ball. When you look at their schedule, they do have to play Florida State, SMU, and Virginia Tech on the road. Those are 3 games I've got them a dog, but that doesn't mean they're going to lose those games. So, yes, I do think they remain a contender in the ACC. It's going to be tough to get back to the ACC title game, but they've got a shot at it.
You look at the positives from Virginia and Virginia Tech, and you've documented it in the Phil Steele College Football Preview Magazine as Phil is with us here in the Fast Lane. Couple more on the ACC. A team that you expect to struggle that a lot of other people are more high on than you.
Oh, I don't know if I'd have put anybody in that category. I haven't seen exactly what everybody's expectations are for teams. So I'm not sure who I'd put in that category.
Okay, no problem at all. The flip side to that is teams that you expect to take a leap forward. Maybe it's relative to other people. Maybe it's just relative to how they performed last year. Who out of the ACC, we'll take out Tech and UVA because we've already discussed them. Who else out of the ACC would fit that description?
Yeah, I think coming into the season, the team I'm going to go with that was only 7-6 last year is Clemson. And when I look at Clemson, they're one of the big homegrown teams out there. Yes, they lose their quarterback, but they're number 7 or number 38 on my experience chart coming in. I like both Vizina and Reynolds at quarterback. I like the offensive line. I think it's improved. Last year, the receiving core is banged up. They get Wesco and Moore back along with Brown. Defensively, I like Sammy Brown, the linebacker. When I look at Clemson's schedule this year, I've got them a slight underdog in 2 games, at LSU and home to Miami. Other than that, I'm favored in all their games. So I'm looking for a bounce back year for Clemson this year. And if you're looking for a team that's not picked, maybe in the top 4 or 5 of the league that has a really good chance of getting there, North Carolina State. They've got a 3rd-year starting quarterback in C.J. Bailey. Duke Scott's there at running back. He's a guy that's going to impress you this year. They gave him the number 1 jersey, and I think he'll live up to it. Defensively, they didn't play the normal Wolfpack defense the last 2 years. I think they will be improved on that side of the ball, and the schedule sets up really well. You look at their road games, not going to Brazil, I think, is big. We saw teams struggle with overseas trips. The fact that that's just a road game at Virginia, and they get 2 byes this year, that's helpful. The schedule's helpful. They miss a lot of the big teams in the conference. The only one of the big boys they play, and when I say big boys, I mean Miami, Clemson, SMU, Louisville. The only one they play is Louisville, so they avoid 3 of the others. I think schedule, talent, you're going to see NC State maybe flirt with that elusive 10-win season for Coach Doran.
Phil Steele with us here in the Fast Lane. It's easy to get his Phil Steele College Football Preview Magazine at philsteele.com. Phil Steele 042 to follow him for updates on Twitter as he'll post nuggets and bits of information there as well. It's definitely a must consume at the start and throughout the entire college football season as you have your year-round observations on what to expect. Phil, we appreciate you giving us some of those today in the Fast Lane. Thank you so much for your time. We're glad to be able to connect once again.
Ed, it's always a pleasure talking football with you. I really enjoyed being on the Fast Lane with you today.
Indeed. Phil Steele. A way to wrap up the show. If you missed anything, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, where you listen to podcasts, we'll have more college football talk throughout the week and plenty of months going forward here in the Fast Lane. Thanks for listening to The Fast Lane on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, W227 BG Timberlake, and 1320 AM, WVGM Lynchburg.
This is Sports Center.
connection and expert guidance, students will gain tools.
BTRN Sports.
Big
Gordon, new
and in your car.
14 seasons. The atmosphere is electric.
Classic Crunch or something.
in Sports app and 93.3 FM.
Midday
big opportunities. Stop by our Timberlake Road location or any Farmers Bank branch. It's simple, safe, and a
You said you'd never give up the convertible. It matters.
Howard service.
AM and FM Lynch.
Volkswagen Taos.
Who shows up. The Kids Mental Health Foundation.org.
America 250.